Hi there, welcome back to the Real Film Chronicles podcast. As always, I'm Nathan.
And I'm Brian.
And in this very special episode, we're going to be taking a look at our bottom 5 films from 2024.
Yeah, we just wrapped up recording the top 10 of 2024. And when there's a top, there's got to be a bottom. I probably could have worded that a little bit better.
Rule 34.
Yeah, I mean, when you make a list, there's a bottom 5, and that's what we're going to focus on today. I mean, I think we've disclaimed this in the past. Like, it's usually pretty fast and loose. Might be a few hot takes in here. Movies that didn't necessarily drive with us. Maybe movies that are like decent, but just didn't work. And some legitimately bad movies. I mean, I think everyone in 2024 knows what the worst movie of the year is. But will it be our worst movie of the year? I don't know.
Stay tuned to find out.
Yeah.
More after these messages.
Should we get right into it?
Let's do it.
All right. My number 5 worst is Borderlands. Okay, this one was definitely chewed apart by critics and media. I didn't think it was as bad as everyone was making it out to be, but this movie for me more represents the studio system of like making movies by committee.
Right.
And I think is a stand-in for all the poor movies, especially like, I mean, we knock Netflix movies, all of these streaming movies that are like, they're there, they're lifeless, they have no soul, there's nothing unique about them. They just miss the mark. Like, Borderlands is competently made. It looks fine. I mean, there's characters on screen, they're doing things, there's actors are acting.
There's characters on screen doing things. This is technically a movie. This is
right.
Amazing.
Oh, it's brutal. And it's like, I play the Borderlands games. I mean, there's a humor in it that I think is kind of here, but we were talking about video games before, like looter shooter. Borderlands is a looter shooter. It's all about upgrading your guns and your weapons and find unique stuff. None of that was in Borderlands, but I mean, how do you adapt that into a movie? I don't know. It was not great, but there's worse ones, as we'll discuss. What's your number 5 worst?
Number 5, I'm going to go with Kraven the Hunter.
Yeah.
It was, again, it was like Aaron Taylor Johnson. Like, he's got, I don't know, like he's in some of the best movies of the year and some of the worst. This was not the worst for me just because, like, there's some really cool action scenes in this, actually. I was watching, I was like, oh, it was really well done. And, like, some of the action scenes are obviously kind of over the top CG that didn't quite work, but some of them were just like, oh, I like when Kraven's kind of moving through the city and stuff, kind of animalistic. Is like, oh, that looks pretty cool. I could picture him kind of fighting Spider-Man, like them kind of moving through the city in the same space. Like, it was really kind of well done. Or when he's kind of switching to animal mode and running up walls and stuff, I was like, actually, that looks pretty cool. When he runs and smashes into the car, gives it a shoulder check, and he bats, like, there's actually some pretty cool kind of action beats in here. It was really nice. But overall, like, the plot was all these Sony Spider-Man villain movies. Like, the plot is just kind of, I don't know if you can even call it a plot. The Rhino was just kind of there as the Rhino, and he gets kind of one scene as the Rhino, and is like, I can't believe I'm missing tattooed Paul Giamatti screaming in a giant rhino mech. Because like that, it made that look good by comparison. I was like, oh man, poor Rhino's getting the short end of the stick in the movies here. It was rough. It wasn't the worst of all those Spider-Man villain stories. Aaron Taylor Johnson, I don't know. I really like, he's a great actor. I like seeing him show up and stuff. But overall, it was just like, I mean, those movies, that kind of Sonyverse kind of went out with I don't know. Not with a bang. What's the opposite of a bang? A whimper, I guess. It was just like a wah, wah.
And it really was like supposedly the last one on any release schedule or we know is in production or anything. And it's like, I think people stayed for it after credits. There's nothing after this. We can only hope.
I was waiting. Oh, and then also Russell Crowe doing his Russian accent over the top. That was the only other saving grace of the movie.
Yeah, I didn't mind that. It was, Russell Crowe.
So Kraven the Hunter, number 5, worst movie of 2024. What's your number 4?
Number 4 for me was Miller's Girl. And was this a Netflix movie? I can't recall. But there's
I don't know. I didn't even want to watch it because it's like all these Lolita movies about like, oh, the young girl falling in love with the or manipulating the older guy, and it's like, oh my god, not again.
Well, that was the thing, is that it's designed. I mean, that type of relationship should be frowned upon and should be awkward in the content, like in the movie, right? Like the story should be having you like question some things. But this one, I think there was absolutely, maybe this is proper, but there's zero chemistry, like none, between Martin Freeman and Jenny Ortega, right? Like when they're on screen together, it's just like, yeah, no, this is just like a normal, like old man, young woman, like
Can't believe Tim from The Office is old now.
right? But I mean, the whole story, I mean, it just felt bad. The tone of the movie felt bad. I question why I even put it on in the first place. Maybe I was expecting maybe a little bit of like, this is going to be uncomfortably taboo or something,
maybe some
like
nuance. Yeah,
but there's none of that. Like there was zero. And I think the last quarter of the movie, I just doom scrolled on my phone. I was like, I'm peaced out. It was a thing where it's like, do I even rate this movie? I don't know. I might have left it unrated for a little bit, but it was bad. It was just bad. Melodramatic, boring, garbage. What's your number 4?
Number 4 is actually the most expensive movie from the year. It is Red One.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's not the very worst, but it's just, was it Netflix or Amazon? Amazon Prime, I think it was on. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Watched on one of those two, and it was just, I'm always like, here's the thing. People always down on Dwayne Johnson saying he's playing the same character over and over again. It's like, I get that a little bit, but he's a good actor, and he has shown that he's got range in the past, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But this one was just like, it was a CGI fest, which I wouldn't mind so much, but so much of it was happening at night. So it was just like this dark blur of stuff happening. So I was like, I can't even see the CGI. Like, what's the point of, I don't know where your $250 million went in this, but like some of the CG was fine. It held up okay. But some of it was just like, this is a $250 million production. That's what you're going to tell me? That's what we're going with here? And then it's like, you see like Dwayne Johnson is taking it so serious.
Yeah.
I was like, you know the kind of movie you're in, or maybe he didn't know the kind of movie he was in, right? I think Chris Evans, he knew what kind of movie he was in.
Yeah.
It was like, this is ridiculous, over the top, but not Chris Rock. Chris Rock and Dwayne The Rock Johnson are two very different people. But The Rock was just like taking it super serious, it looked like he was taking himself super serious. And I'm just like, the whole thing was kind of convoluted. I don't know. It was just blah.
Yeah, I think that one was like every scene was just overly CGI. That's where all the money was, but they just stretched themselves even too thin. Every single like full CGI characters that we don't need. All that stuff.
Replacing CGI backgrounds and stuff. And like,
I think at the end of the day, when I finished watching the movie, I'd be like, well, that was a Christmas film and I'll never watch it again. Yeah. But it's like, maybe it's good for kids. And I probably gave it some more leeway. Be like, families can probably watch that safely and get a couple of hours of entertainment out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that one represents for sure, like bloated budgets and like is what we've revisited in the past. Are these movies just money laundering schemes? You know what I mean?
It's like, it represents all the worst of streaming services where it's just like, it's all, I wouldn't even say style. It's all bombast, no substance to it, right? It's like, yeah, families can watch it and they'll forget about it. But yeah, Red One, my number 4 worst. Number 3, Brian.
Subservience.
Starring Megan. I was gonna say Megan Fox. Sorry,
Megan Fox as a robot, like an AI robot lady.
AI robot lady. You should write summaries on Netflix. This is perfect. Megan Fox is an AI robot lady type person who does stuff on screen. Perfect.
I think I watched the movie AI just before. It was like a double feature. It was a theme night for me, and it's like,
makes sense.
AI wasn't even that great, but it was serviceable, was fine. And then I watched this and I was like, just take my eyes out, please. Come on. Like, it was just really bad. And I saw some positive reviews and people were recommending it. And I'm watching it, it's just like, I don't understand that at all. Like, the movie's so bland. Everything about it. Like, And I can forgive Megan Fox for like acting a bit robotic because she's a robot in the movie.
Yeah,
that's fine. But everyone else is playing at different levels. And I have to mention the music. The music drove me batty how like garbage it was. And, you know, I feel awful for just like throwing things, you know, in the trash like that. But like the music stood out to me as like not matched with the movie maybe. It was it's been many months since I've seen it. And I recall the music being really poor. So that's what I kind of focused on when I was writing notes for this. But man, it was just, that movie's just best avoided. Like just forget it even exists. Let's hear your number 3.
I haven't checked that out either. I almost watched that the other night too. I was like, oh, could this be a possibility here? I don't know if this is cheating again. I don't know. It's another Christmas movie, but Dear Santa.
Oh, you're attacking Christmas this year in bottom 5.
Yeah, I know we're gonna get like a Real Film Chronicles War on Christmas here.
We get a nice lump of coal next year for sure.
But there's no two ways about it. It was just awful. There's some interesting ideas that went there. It's like the whole premise is that dyslexic kid writes a letter to Satan instead of Santa. Jack Black shows up as Satan, and you know they wasted Jack Black, or Jack Black felt like, I don't know if he was like, he's just like, well, he is getting older, so maybe he just doesn't have the same energy level anymore. But like, you're gonna waste Jack Black in this, and I don't know, the whole premise was like, it just did some really weird stuff. The acting was kind of all over the place. I'm not gonna like rail on kid actors were fine, right? They were doing a good job. Actually, the kids were probably the best part of it. Actually, come to think of it, they had a really good chemistry. Actually, the kind of main two kind of characters. It was like they're the outcast at school, and then they get the Satan shows up and it's like get some 3 wishes, and then they're become more popular and whatnot. Kind of same. You've seen it a million times before, and then just like the things they did, they played off for laughs, especially at the end and how things worked out. I was just like, you're gonna play off. Essentially playing off like a dead kid brother for laughs. I'm just like, this is just, the whole thing's just fallen completely flat. It was just, we threw it on at Christmas time thinking it was like, oh, nice little distraction. And my family and I were looking at each other. It was like, has anybody laughed once yet? And it's like, are we seeing what we're seeing here? Like, is this what we're seeing? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Kind of thing. It's like, yeah, it was like, I don't know. It was quite train wreck levels bad. It was approaching that. Maybe car wreck level, not quite a train wreck.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely, Christmas. This is my War on Christmas, I guess. Sure.
Gonna round out your other 2 with more Christmas movies.
This is all.
We've talked about this in the past where, like, say a Hallmark Christmas movie, they feel kind of different than our usual movie affair, but like, I don't think they're bad movies necessarily. They're different. There's a different feel, and like, they're meant for a different purpose. Like, they are definitely
made for TV movies, essentially, right? It's different feel, different cinematography, different caliber of acting I'm going to expect, and different caliber. Like, if you're going to put even on Netflix or Amazon Prime, you're telling me like your premiere services, you're charging us, cost is going up again for Netflix, per the monthly cost. Is like, you're telling me all that extra money, and this is like, you're trying to compete with, like, you're trying to get movies in the Oscar race and stuff like this and compete. So you're telling me to expect top level programming, and we get this kind of stuff. So they're setting those expectations for us, right? So
yeah, it's fair.
I feel like it's fair game.
My number 2, I basically filtered out into horror movies because I needed a good horror film, although I guess Subservience was kind of a horror film. But that fit more my sci-fi element. Tarot.
Okay.
2024 horror film where it's like a group of, kids, teenage, I don't know, young teens. Adults. They read their tarots and awful things start happening. There's like, it's been a while since I watched this movie. I think I put it out of my head like almost immediately. Me and my friend watched this and we're like, oof, that was bad. It was just bad. It wasn't not really anything redeemable throughout the movie. And the thing is, there's nothing memorable. Like, if you're going to there's a lot of bad horror movies.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I can get behind a bad horror movie if it has like 1 or 2 pretty awesome scenes, like a couple unique kills or like a very interesting concept. Something has to happen in it. I've watched movies that are 90 minutes long 80 minutes, nothing happens, and it has a bombastic 10-minute finale. Memorable. Good movie. Tarot was just bland from the start to finish. It was dumb. It was a bag of rocks for a film. Like, just bury it in concrete shoes out in the ocean. Like, give me a break.
Ryan's getting brutal here. Wow. This is crazy.
It's awful because it has a 2.0 average on Letterboxd. I mean, I don't think it deserves that. It's a 1-star film.
I'm picturing the montage at the end of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, where Brian's just like going through, tracking down people online, going to their house and beating them up. It's like, you rated this higher, the 2 or higher? Boom.
But
right in the kisser.
Yeah. All right, what's your number 2? Second worst.
All right,
movie.
Brian. This is gonna be my hot take, and I can picture you right now. You're rolling your eyes when I say this.
Oh no.
Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire. But to me, this was just, again, you're gonna tell me this is a big Hollywood blockbuster. You essentially have infinite resources to do this. It's a well-known, established franchise, and it was just completely like the plots were nonsensical. Characters were given nothing to do. Key characters from the first movie, in the first kind of reboot movie, their Afterlife. I was like, okay, I didn't really care for that one either. But like Finn Wolfhard, the main character in that one, and he's just kind of here in this one. They kind of put him to the side. It's like, it was doing nothing to do. The plot, nothing about the plot made any sense. The characters would just show up and do and say random stuff. And it was just this lifeless retread of a classic, beloved, I would say franchise, but the first 2 movies. And I'm going to count the second movie in there. I love the second movie. That was the first Ghostbusters movie I think I saw. So like Ghostbusters 1 and 2 to me, amazing. The cartoon show growing up, amazing. But Afterlife I thought was pretty bad, pretty bland, or maybe even bad to average. Frozen Empire was just, I didn't see anything redeeming in there. It was just a kind of, as a fan of Ghostbusters, it was kind of a slap in the face to see this kind of stuff. To see is just like, sure, let's just churn out this nonsense. And yeah, Ghostbusters. I know a lot of people love this movie, or thought it was just fine, middle of the road. I can't stand this kind of pandering garbage, building on a good name of wearing out the good name of really kind of classic. You know, just look at the first one, the classic movie, and this is just represents everything wrong to me with big budget Hollywood. You talk about movies made by committee or made by in the boardroom. This feels exactly like, oh, how are we gonna? This is gonna sell some toys here. That's gonna sell some T-shirts there. What would this character do naturally? So who cares? This is a focus group said we need to do this. It's like feels like a movie that was created in a boardroom somewhere. No heart or soul at all in this one. So yeah, I know that's a hot take for a big budget movie, but yeah, Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire, my second least favorite movie of the year. It was just, I hate it.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a hot take it is. I mean, I can understand the disappointment in it. It's one of those things where I am fully in, like, I've fallen for the nostalgia, especially with that first, like, the previous one to this one. Afterlife. Yeah. It was like, all right. Like, I perked up when I hear the Ecto-1 siren going down the street and be like, oh, yeah, like, just the nostalgia washes over me. This one definitely didn't have as much for me. But I think I still enjoyed it when I was in theaters. But yeah, definitely never. I'll probably never. Will I ever watch it again? Probably not. I mean, it's ultimately forgettable. It's not like, and I can't imagine like a younger generation. Like, we were so old. Ghostbusters 2. We rewatched that movie a million times. I don't. Yeah. Our kids gonna watch this one, Frozen Empire, that many times, like we did back then.
Who's this movie for, right? It's like, it's kind of capitalizing on nostalgia for adults.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be that same classic. Like the original cast made it a classic. And the original director made it a classic. It's not for kids because like it's regurgitating this property from the 80s and 90s. And I was like, the kids weren't alive back then. They don't have the same nostalgic. I don't know who this was for, honestly.
That's all right.
That's just me. I'm an old man yelling at clouds. I know.
That's what the podcast is all about, really.
All right, your bottom pick, worst movie of the year. I think we're on the same page on this one. I know for sure. I know for sure we're on the same page.
We have to be. The entire country, the planet has to be, right?
Like our entire like understanding of reality depends upon this being the case.
Madame Web.
Yeah, hands down.
Madame Web, hands down, the worst movie of the year. I mean, it's the Sony Marvel thing. It was a real low point, but also it's not like Craven. You mentioned some good points out of it. There's no good points coming out of Madame Web. And
yeah, because
I think there's
even the Venom films. You don't like the Venom films, but I think even you would agree there's still some kind of, even the action beats. There's something you could actually watch and kind of latch onto, right?
Well, 100%. Like that last Venom movie wouldn't make the bottom 5 for me, but it was still an okay movie that I had fun watching because it's like it knows what's going on. Webb had no idea what kind of movie it wanted to be, and you could tell it was reshot. The script was hacked apart. The ADR problems throughout the movie. When you like really, it's more interesting to do a deep dive afterwards and be like, what was this movie initially? The first draft.
Who's the guy? Nando.
Yes, Nando V Movies, right?
Nando V Movies. If you haven't seen it yet, watch his breakdown of the ADR and his speculations as to the plot structure, the original plot structure of this. Fascinating stuff. I watched that. That was a better movie than this. Yeah. This was. And it's not even a movie. It's a YouTube channel.
Like everything in here was just laughable. But in terms of rewatching it, yeah, I'll rewatch this because I'll probably put myself through the entire Sony Marvel universe again someday. But I'm not buying any of these movies on disc. Let me just say, like, I'm not rushing out to buy these. And the Venom movies, like first Venom was fine. Second one I thought was bad. And the third one was a bit better, but you could probably put any 3 of those movies into your bottom lists of 2024, like you did with Craven. Yeah. And you're not wrong. Like they're just missing the mark. And Madame Web, boy, that was,
I think
it was brutal. Like so brutal.
Madame Web was only a movie in the most technical definition of like a series of still images put together to form motion.
What is it? Characters on screen saying things and things happening on screen.
There were technically characters on screen and they were doing and saying things. I mean, in the most technical sense, but like it fails fundamentally in terms of plot, story, logic, theme, character, basic filmmaking in terms of like editing. It was just nonsensical. It was nonsensical. Like, transition between scenes or like character motivations, things that people were saying or doing. It was absolutely like, I feel some of the movies were like, I don't blame the actors. I feel really bad for all those actors, like Dakota Johnson and like Sydney Sweeney was. I think that was my first time I saw Sydney Sweeney because like she's blown up right now.
Yeah,
it's been for a while. I was like, I feel really bad because like I watched this like, why is everybody loving Sydney Sweeney? It's like, oh, okay, because I've only seen her in a couple movies and one of those was Madame Web. So I was like, I can't like hold it against the people in that movie that they happened to be. Because they were giving it their all for what it was worth, right? But yeah, man, it was just like a classic example of everything not to do when making a movie. If you do the exact opposite of everything they did in Madame Web, you would have, the new Citizen Kane, essentially, right? It's the perfect. It's almost like an anti-movie, right? It's like matter and antimatter. This is like movies like Madame Web is like an anti-movie. So just be careful if you do have it and you put it on next to your shelf.
Yeah.
If movies and anti-movies ever come in contact, it will create an explosion. If Star Trek is taught anything, the positive and negative particles coming together, and like you said, like I'm not buying these. The only ones I do buy just because for nostalgia purpose. I watched the Venom movies with my son, and he really loved them as a kid, and so I was like, okay, it's almost for like the memory of watching them, not for the movies themselves, right? The Venom movies, like I had good memories with my son watching these. Like he was like a little kid watching, oh, Venom's on the big screen. This is awesome. It was like, I was sitting in the theater with him. I was like, okay, cool. I dig the enthusiasm. But the other ones is like, maybe if they came to like $5, even then I was like, do I really like, I'm not going to watch them again. I'm not going to watch Craven or Morbius or Madame Web again. Like
this is the thing too. Like for kids, no one knows who Madame Web is. No one knows who any of these characters are. We don't get to see.
Who the hell, except for the most hardcore fan, knows Madame Web or Craven the Hunter? right?
Well, Kraven the Hunter, I could see some people knowing. A very famous Spider-Man storyline.
I'm talking about like more kind of general public people who know Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man. But even they know the Joker is bad guys, right? It's like, but like, what are the Jokers that like Riddler and Penguin? They know Batman's rogue galleries. Maybe they know like Doc Ock or something. But like, you have to go like, I think we take it for granted because we kind of have a foot in that world. But like most people don't know like Kraven the Hunter. Like it's not like a well-known villain, right?
Like these are a deep character to like. Well, sorry, the character's not deep, but this is like a deep dive into Spider-Man war universe to like pull out some characters. And it's interesting because like Sony's also doing Spider-Verse movies, pulling out characters that, as a Spider-Man fan, I've never heard of or I'm not familiar with, like the Spot in the latest Spider-Verse film.
Yeah.
And like making them compelling. So it's like you can pull out random obtuse characters here and make them compelling, but they just didn't here. They did not. It has a 1.5 average on Letterboxd and lots of nasty
I think that's 1.5 too high. The only reason I rated it 0.5 on Letterboxd was because you can't rate a 0, or else I would have given it a 0. I make it a point of habit to rate everything, but like it doesn't. Yeah, it's absolute. It's terrible filmmaking. It absolutely is. Yeah.
So, did you have any honorable mentions for your bottom list?
I did as I was making this.
Okay. What
do you?
Shoot, I do. I'm just going through my list, and I'll call out a couple titles.
I feel bad for this one, but The Watchers, it was.
Oh yes, okay.
M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. The reason I feel bad is because like, I think it's coming from that same vein as her father, where she's like making a project she's passionate about. But for me, it just fell completely flat. Didn't really come together or gel well. But the reason I feel bad is because like, I think it was all in good faith, and I love to see, you know, I'm not a fan of nepotism in general, but it's like it just feels like Shyamalan and his daughter is kind of working together. It's like that's pretty cool that they get to do that, right? But just the end product didn't work out for me. Downtown Owl was another one, maybe more so because I love Chuck Klosterman. Who he's a writer. I think we're both fans of Chuck Klosterman, his work. He's written 2 novels. Downtown Owl and The Visible Man. In addition to normally he's an essayist. He's got some short stories as well. But I reread Downtown Owl in preparation to watch the movie, and they made some just really bizarre changes and kind of missed the point of the book a little bit, and shortchanged some of the characters. So Damsel was another one. I was just like, I don't know. It was like there was a good story in there. There could have been like a kind of a deconstruction of these old kind of fairy tale stories, but this one was really clumsily handled, and just like I'm not even sure. It was a pretty muddled message at the end. I was like, I don't even know what you're trying to say anymore. Inheritance, I think it was like a Swedish film I found on Netflix. I don't know. This feels like
I saw that one. Yes, I see it in my near the bottom of the list of my 2024 films. I was like,
and I think we'd heard something. People in our circle said, "Oh, this is kind of a neat movie. Check it out." And we was like, "Okay, it's kind of cool." We watched it. It was like a cool premise, and it was like, you know, different. I'm always looking for stuff like off the kind of the beaten path that's not kind of Hollywood, and this one was like cool premise, interesting, and just kind of fell apart. It just completely unraveled as it kind of went through, and nothing really made sense by the end. The only other one I had kind of honorable mention was Lift. It was a heist movie starring Kevin Hart. The irony here being, I really like Kevin Hart's performance because he was the straight man in this one. He wasn't his usual kind of whiny, high-pitched self where he was like doing his usual shtick. He was actually like the suave kind of leader of this group of thieves doing the heist. It's like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's like Kevin Hart does have range as an actor. He can do these. I was like, oh, that's really cool. It's just too bad it was a ultra generic, overblown heist movie where, again, like a bunch of stuff just kind of fell apart and like the logic. And I was like, I'm willing to suspend disbelief as much as the next person. But like there's just like steps too far. And then it's not even maybe about that, but then the whole thing's just so bland. It's such a retread of, essentially, if you've seen a heist movie before, this is just like every other, this is like generic heist movie kind of 1,225, right? It's just like,
I think I've seen that criticism for Borderlands as well, where Kevin Hart is in it, but they don't let him be funny. like he's more comedy, but you're having him play like a serious soldier guy in this one. And it's just like, why not just let him? There's supposed to be lots of funny characters in this movie. Why isn't he one of them? Right?
Well, I think in Lift it worked. In Lift he didn't have to be funny, and it was really good, right? Where normally he's the funny guy, but in this one he was the straight man. And I was like, oh, he works as a straight man. He works as like a serious character. Like I was pleasantly surprised by that, but the rest of the movie I was a huge letdown. I was like, normally if it was just something that's like, oh, it was kind of, meh. It didn't make an impression, but it made an impression to the point where I remember this month later as being a bad film, right? Where like there's a bunch of in between ones where I was looking through my list and I was like, I don't even remember watching that movie.
Yeah.
And this was like, this didn't even get to that level of like mediocrity. It was like, no, it was just bad. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the thing. Like when I was putting Tarot in, I was like, I don't even remember watching that, but I have it rated like 1 star, so I must have really hated it.
What are your honorable mentions there?
Yeah, I'll throw out some honorable mentions here. I did. Craven was pretty low rated for me.
Yeah.
I think I gave it 1.5, but I also gave Venom 2 stars.
Yeah.
They're not far apart, unfortunately. I put the Rebel Moon extended cuts in here.
Oh yeah, I'll add those to my list too. I didn't watch the extended cuts. I don't think I watched the original cuts. Like as a Zack Snyder fan, this hurts. It hurts to see the.
I mean, it hurts, but it's also like now I've watched both regular cuts and extended cuts, and it's like I just didn't really get a whole lot out of the movies, but I didn't find them to be like so offensive. They were just like
most important thing in the extended cuts. Were there more scenes of them harvesting wheat?
Probably.
Oh,
I mean,
God,
they just harvest wheat constantly.
It wasn't enough in the first original cuts.
They harvest it and they just spend an hour like just piling wheat up by the houses, which doesn't work.
I forgot about those movies. Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of those things.
And you watched them
could
twice.
Go a lot worse.
You watched the extended cuts too. I couldn't bring myself to watch the extended cuts yet.
Well, that was my big problem with the first one is that like it just felt like boom, boom, boom. We're picking up all these characters, but the extended cuts didn't really address that. It didn't really give much more backstory. There's a lot more.
Yeah.
The second one I think falters because the second I don't want to call it theatrical. The original cut seemed a lot more like action. It was like boom. All right, we're having like an hour and a half of like just pure action, like the assault on the planet, going back and forth. And I think that works fine. Like that is okay. When you extend it, we're just sitting around talking about our backstories now and not really expanding on the action or like there's no extra plot beats. Didn't really add anything to the movie. And it was like, I think the movie looks great. The action looks great. Zack Snyder can put together some scenes here, but ultimately like the extended cuts were just like unnecessary. Moving along here, I put in Night Swim, which
I heard bad things.
Yeah, which I didn't really mind too much when I was watching it, but I was like, yeah, that was also just kind of a bland horror thriller film.
Pool. Just don't go in the pool.
Yeah, I mean, I put in Argyle as a lowly rated film, and I think that is more. Included my honorable mentions here because it was just more disappointing than anything else. Like, again, there's some decent action. It's directed okay, but like I kind of feel as though the advertising, the marketing had us expecting a bit of a different film than what this was.
Okay.
And I would put The Instigators in there as well, which has Matt Damon and Casey Affleck. And it just didn't mesh with me. I still gave it 2.5 stars, but it was just disappointment. And I don't know. It didn't seem like it would needed to say anything. It wasn't doing anything interesting. It just wasn't that hot. And then there's horror movies that I've rated low, but I don't consider them to be bad movies, like Winnie the Pooh 2, like Blood and Honey or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever your stance on it like co-opting those public domain figures now, it's still a slasher movie with lots of gory kills. If you're into that, boom, you got a pretty solid movie there. Street Trash remake as well. Me and my friends watched that. I think we had fun watching it. Yeah.
I didn't know this was a remake. Oh, okay.
And so it's like, oh, the modern tech allows them to do a lot more with practical effects. The movie didn't land for me at all, but it was still fun to watch with friends, and I could appreciate how much passion went into like creating those effects.
Yeah.
It was just like almost silly gory, but that's part of the charm, right?
Yeah, it's still a different game when like the B horror movies. Like, well, I'm not going to rate a B movie the same as I would rate. I would hold them the same standards as like, you know, the kind of A-list stuff, right? So
that kind of wraps up my honorable mentions. Yeah.
Nice.
I feel confident in my bottom 5.
There were no hot takes. I had at least one hot take. No hot takes from Brian though.
No.
It kind of
just calling Taro a bag of rocks or something. I don't know what that was.
Cement shoes and buried at the bottom of the ocean.
Taro some cement shoes.
Just don't get on Brian's bad side. Apparently, it's like, we took it a bit too far here.
Oh my goodness. Well, that was a lot of fun to put together there. And,
yeah, 100%.
Top 10. Have a listen to that. There's some really good cinema there. And bottom 5. Some movies to avoid.
Or, you know, the bottom 5 was always great to put together kind of drinking games for, right? It's like,
yeah. Yeah, sure.
Well, like, yeah, you know, you go through Craven, and it's like every time he calls himself the hunter,
oh,
he's like, take a shot.